Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist, the essential podcast for occupational therapy professionals looking to deepen their understanding of fascia's pivotal role in therapy and health. I'm your host, Amy Mayer, an experienced occupational therapist, practice owner, and dedicated educator. Here we'll dive into the fascinating world of fascia, exploring its significance in the human body and its critical influence on occupational therapy practice. Each episode will bring you cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and practical strategies to help you confidently integrate the science of fascia into your therapeutic approach. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just starting out, our goal is to equip you with high-quality, evidence-based, and fascia-informed continuing education opportunities that will enhance your skills and benefit your clients. So join us as we unravel the complexities of fascia and transform the way you practice occupational therapy. All health and wellness practitioners are welcome. Let's learn, grow, and evolve together. This is Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. And today we're going to talk about yoga. And true confession here, when I would have been around 2005, I had a friend who started doing yoga, and we were very close, and she kept trying to get me to go to yoga with her. And I was like, yoga's dumb. No, thank you. I want to go play intramural volleyball or do about anything else to get my exercise. I don't want to do yoga. She kept at me. Now, during that time, I was completing my doctorate in occupational therapy, and I was so stressed because I was also managing multiple departments at a hospital, and huge hospital, and teaching a couple classes at the university, and with 2 kids and a husband, and just a busy life. And I'm trying to get this degree completed. And she's like, just come with me. Just make me happy and come with me at least once and see what you think, and then go from there. So I did, and I went to a simple class at a YMCA, and the instructor was just really basic, and there was people that looked very, all kinds of body shapes and styles, and not everybody had yoga pants on. I don't even think I owned yoga pants or anything like that at that time. And I think the teacher just had sweats on. She was maybe like in her 30s. She did not have the perfect body. And I did the class, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. That's, but what happened for me was I went home that night and I slept so good that I decided, wow, there was something happened and it was good. I'm going to keep doing this. So I kept going back, and I found that I really loved how it made my body feel. I really loved how it sort of calmed my brain. It sort of leveled things out for me. And what I think, or what I was likely happening from what I know now, is I was just at least giving my brain and my body an hour a couple times a week of coming out of fight or flight and down into that rest and digest, out of sympathetic, down into parasympathetic, and giving my body and my brain a break was really what I needed. Even though it wasn't this, a huge everyday practice, it was enough to make a change in my experience of my life and my brain and my body. So I kept at it, and it was fun to see my abilities change. And she did things that challenged our strength, and I could see myself also getting stronger. And I'm like, wow, this really is really good for my body. The other thing I did, though, is I would always be in the back of the class, and I would sneak out during Shavasana. And if you don't know Shavasana, that's the last part of class where everybody lays down and you breathe or maybe you do a short meditation. But I would always sneak out because I'm like, I don't need that. But I learned as I went along, okay, yeah, this is good. This is important. So when I finished my doctorate, the first thing that I turned around and did was go get some education so I could start teaching yoga. Because at that time, I was also running the wellness program at the hospital and chairing the wellness committee. And I couldn't get a budget to hire anybody to come teach any classes. And people were asking for them. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go get some education and learn how to teach yoga, and I'll teach it myself. And I did. And I started doing that in 2007, I believe. And there's a woman who still takes my classes as of today. When she found out I left and started my practice, she followed me and started coming to my yoga classes in my practice now. And that's amazing. So the reason I want to talk about yoga is because yoga is what a lot of the fascia researchers talk about as being really good for your fascial system. And they're getting a lot of Thomas Myers and Robert Schlepp do a lot of presentations for different yoga groups because they'll listen and they want this information and they can see that it makes a difference for the body. And the fascia researchers also love it because yoga has such tremendous variety. And that is really what our bodies are designed for. They're not designed they are designed for linear movement and exercise, but not just that. In order to really have healthy body and healthy fascia, you need to move outside of the linear planes. You need lots of unique movements, because if we were living in nature, we'd be doing a lot of unique movements. And that's what yoga offers. So I eventually completed my 200 hours and got my RYT and have maintained that for many, many, many years now. But I don't teach yoga in a traditional way. A lot of the people that attend my yoga classes are pretty much my age on up. So I have a lot of people who are retired. But I occasionally get some younger people coming to class. And when I have new people I repeat things a lot in my classes because we all need repetition for learning. But I really, really emphasize certain things when I have new people coming to the classes. And one of those things that I like to say is, hopefully I get this right, because sometimes I don't. And when we think about yoga is all about these poses. And when a lot of people think about yoga, the way yoga is sold to us, it's often, young, pretty women with perfect bodies and super adorable yoga outfits doing these incredible poses. And my message is, poses are there as a guide, but a pose should rarely be your goal. Or yes, it should be your guide, but not your goal. It doesn't matter if you're even able to get into a specific pose in the perfect, air quote, way. But use it as a guide to bring your body into novel positions. And what I like to tell my yoga people, is that all we're really trying to do is to get into and move parts of your body that probably haven't been moved since the last class, and get deep into those spaces that need that fluid flow, need that nutrition. When you keep the fascia open and healthy, you're going to get better fluid exchange, and that's what keeps all of our cells healthy, and consequently, that's what keeps us healthy. If our cells are healthy, we are healthy, and we need that fluid flow and we need that exchange in order for that to happen. So yoga is a super good option to weave into any exercise program. If someone is just doing walking or running or treadmilling or elliptical or rowing or all these different linear options, bicycling, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you will be a healthier person with healthier fascia if you weave in some non-linear movement, something like yoga. Could be Tai Chi. There's other things out there, but preferably some yoga. Not preferably. Do what's right for you. But yoga offers us something different from a lot of other things that are out there. There is a big natural movement trend, maybe, I guess, out there. And I did go in 2019, I went and got certified in MoveNat, which is movement natural, or a form of natural movement. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But their target audience was not 50-some-year-old women. At least at that time, anyway. I shared that class with people a lot younger than myself, but I passed that thing and got my certification and came home with a lot of bruises, and I was kind of sore. But that maybe is for another podcast. So the natural movement is a nice option too for people that maybe like to be a little more active than the yoga option, to get that novel kind of movement into their bodies. You want novel movement that takes you through the end ranges of your joints, that takes your joints, all your joints, through as much of the range of motion as you have available to you. That's one of the really important pieces. And some gentle stretching. There even doesn't even have to be like yin yoga is great. The fascial researchers like yin yoga because there are some longer holds, but I really think you have to be super careful with yin yoga that you're not overdoing those end ranges and pushing hard into them. It should not be uncomfortable. There should be sensation, but it should not be uncomfortable. So what I wanted to talk about next is there are so many people out there. I don't remember exactly what the latest stats are, but millions and millions and millions and millions, like 30 million people practicing yoga. But then there are also another 30 million who try yoga, but they stop. They give up. They don't do it. They don't stick with it. And it's often because they're not getting into the right practice. So you're going to find people in your practice, whatever practice you're in, whatever practice area you are in, you're probably going to run into people who have yoga experience, and that can be a really motivating way to get them back into their functional activities. And well, yoga is a functional activity for some people. It's a meaningful occupation. It certainly is for me. And so if I was your patient someday, which I very well may be anytime soon, yoga would be motivating to me as a form of exercise rather than giving me some TheraBand, which I don't mind that either, but some TheraBand or something else that's super linear and isolated. So anyway, there are lots of yoga practitioners out there who are, RYTs. They've gotten some sort of education, certification to teach, but it's not a regulated profession. So anybody can learn a little something and turn around and teach it. And there's going to be people that don't like that I just said that. But I did not have my RYT when I started teaching yoga at the hospital, leading a little group. You don't have to. It's not regulated. And I'm like, okay. And I went and I took a level 1 through YogaFit and learned the poses and learned all the tips for teaching them. But I'm like, I have a doctorate in OT. I know how to keep people safe. I know the anatomy. I know all the other things that they're going to want to teach me. And I did end up finishing it just because it was fun and it was interesting. And I did learn a few more things. But anyway, it's not regulated. So if you have somebody who comes to you and says, yoga is super motivating for me, and they want to integrate that into their rehab, then you can do that with them. You do not have to have an RYT. Now, back to people getting into yoga and not sticking with it. I think that is because people have that image of yoga that we were talking about before, and that's their only understanding of yoga, that you've got to get some yoga pants, you go to a class at the Y or the local, there's so many yoga studios anymore. You go to a class at a yoga studio and maybe they have a class for beginners, but is it really the beginner that like if I walked in now, or some of my clients who take my class could not walk into a beginner class at a local studio and probably do okay. Now now that's not true across the board. I recognize that. But people are walking into classes that they're not ready for, and they get discouraged, or worse yet, they might get injured and then they don't go back. And they're missing out on all the wonderful potential benefits of doing yoga. So I think this was the second class that I ever created, was the Yoga for Your Health class that I have online. And I was motivated to do it for exactly what I just, similar story. I had a client who came in. He was kind of I would say middle ages man with a lot of stuff going on in his body, and his doctor. He came in and he said, "Hey, Amy, my doc said I should do some yoga, and that would be really helpful to me." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I agree, totally. What else did they tell you?" And he said, "Well, nothing. They just told me I should do yoga." I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you know about yoga?" "Nothing." So it's great for a practitioner to give the advice of go do yoga, but if it stops there, your patient's not going to get the benefit that you're hoping that they're going to get. He had no idea what the next step was to making that happen. And that is not an isolated incident. But I believe that was the one that stimulated me to make this course. So I made the course. The first round of that course was actually for people like him. People who were told, you should do some yoga, but then got no other information. And there are so many books out there, and there's so many online, YouTube stuff. You could just look for hours and spend a lot of time or spend a lot of money on books and still not have the right information that you need in order to match your level of function and your issue. So here's what the course looks like. So, before I go there, so I created the course for the public, but then I copied that course and added things. And then wrote it for the healthcare professional. my fellow OT practitioners, but anybody else who wants to take it. It could be a PA, it could be a nurse practitioner, it could be a physician. I don't know if they're going to get on here and take it or not, but it's for them so that you can go that next step and say, here's what else you need. Here's what to look for you and your issue, whether it's blood pressure or mental health or physical health or, coming back and regaining strength, whatever it is. So in this course, we have a section that is just background. What do you need to know about yoga in general? And it's not like a big, long history lesson. It's just kind of a bit of history and where it came from and kind of how it sort of morphed into something completely different here in the United States. But what is yoga? And then I connect yoga with fascia. And why are the researchers saying that yoga is so important? And then we have a yoga glossary. Here's some simple terms you need to know about yoga in order to have a conversation. Because part of what I teach in the class later on is call a local studio, explain who you are, what you're dealing with, and am I appropriate for your beginner course? And if you can speak that language, you can ask better questions, right? The next is what's the typical space and equipment that you might need to practice yoga, and where do you find it? Because my client didn't even know, where do you go to buy a yoga mat? Well, there's lots of options out there, but he had no idea. The next section is about yoga and injuries and how they are more common than you think. And a lot of them come from a couple different sources. One is people trying too hard to look a certain way in a pose, trying to keep up with the teacher and the rest of the class. And then the other one comes from doing hands-on adjustments. And that's one thing I loved about Yoga Fit, where I got all my training, was we didn't do hands-on adjustments. We learned how to use our hand as a guide, as a target. So rather than moving someone's knee in a certain direction, I would put my hand in the direction I wanted them to move and say, can you move a little bit towards my hand? And see what their body can do. And that was very intuitive to me because of my background. But a lot of injuries are coming from people putting hands on other people and trying to get them into those poses. And that is, so many bodies today can't handle that. Then we go into a little brief overview of the research out there on yoga, just to show whoever's taking the course that there's a ton of research that says yoga is so helpful for so many things. And I think as the research on fascia continues to pour out, we're going to start combining yoga with the fascia research, and fascia is going to be the mechanism in a lot of this. The next big section in this course is called Health Conditions in Yoga. And so we talk about, we have physical health, mental health, and mental and emotional health, wellness, women's health, healthy aging, athletic performance, kids and teens, and then yoga and rehabilitation settings. So within those sections, we talk about, who is in this category. Like in the physical health, people with arthritis, fibromyalgia, headaches, irritable bowel cancer, MS. All these different potential symptoms would fall into this category, plus many more. And then we talk about the summary of the research of yoga on physical issues and what is the research telling us, how it's helping. And then we talk about, if you have these issues, what are the styles of yoga that you should explore? And depending on your issue, you might want to try yin, you might want to try restorative, you might want to try yoga nidra. If you're really fit, maybe you want to try vinyasa. And so you get an explanation of what all these a mini explanation of what all those styles are. So that happens in all those different categories and health conditions. And then in the next major section, we have a yoga sampler section. And so in this section, you actually we have Hatha, we have Vinyasa, Yin, Chair Yoga, Restorative, Yoga Nidra, and then advanced and other forms of yoga. In this section, you get a little bit of a description of the style of yoga, you get some precautions, and then you get some basic information, and then you get a little video showing you about that. And then we talk about substitutions and how it's so important to know and be ready, and that it's okay to substitute a pose. If the class is doing something that you're not comfortable in, then you should be ready to substitute. And I give substitutions for standing poses, for sitting poses, for floor, being on the floor poses, because a lot of times a teacher will say, if you're not comfortable in this pose, then take a child's pose. Well, if everybody's standing, you're not going to go down into a child's pose, right? And then I guide everybody through a short practice. So we do that for all the different styles of yoga. And then the last section, it's not the almost last section, is creating your own practice. And I talk a little bit about the regulation of yoga and yoga instructors and what to look for in a yoga teacher. And so again, it's about understanding who is teaching you and what their credentials are, and asking the right questions. And I think it's also really important too, because as I said, somebody without credentials can be teaching yoga, and I'm not opposed to that if they know what they're doing. Because sometimes you need to connect with your teacher in a way that you like their voice, you like their inflections, you like just the way they lead the class, you like their pace. That's equally as important as their credentials. So then we talk about getting some private yoga lessons, and maybe that's something that you want to do before you jump into a class and really get comfortable with the language and the different poses that are common to the style of yoga that you want to practice. I've done some private yoga classes over the years, and it's really helpful. And some of them I've done have been helping people who were like my client I talked about earlier, had no idea what they were doing and wanted to walk in feeling a little bit more confident and competent to a yoga class with other people. But others I've done have been about specific injuries or abilities that people have or don't have, and they want to keep themselves safe. And one in particular I can remember right now is a woman who had foot surgery, and she was having chronic issues and pain in her toe. And when she was trying to practice yoga, she would flare it up. So we got together and we looked at all the different poses that she loved to do at home and that she knew she'd probably be doing in classes, and ones that she knew would flare up her foot or her toe. And we did workarounds. We did different foot placements where I was really reinforcing the idea that you don't have to take as long of a stance in your Warrior 1 or your Warrior 2 or whatever. Take the stance that keeps you safe. You don't have to look like the teacher. You don't have to look like the people on either side of you. So the private yoga instruction can be really helpful for people that have any kind of an issue, want to get back into yoga, or the people that are totally scared of it but want to try it. Then we have a section on investigating local classes and how to get online and what the different kinds of classes are, and asking questions about beginner classes, and don't be afraid to call them up and ask questions. And the next section is investigating apps and online resources and what's out there, and how can you what to put in your search engine to find the right information to match what you need. And then the last subsection here is book recommendations, and some books that I've found very helpful over the years that I think are great for beginners. And then the last section is a little bit of a course quiz, some giving course feedback, and how to get your CE and all that kind of stuff. So, and then finally, very, very, very last is a bonus yoga class. Well, several classes that you can take in different styles. It's just me leading you through a short class and to get people more comfortable with the different styles and the different poses. So in my class that I teach every Tuesday. I teach a 45-minute yoga for your Fascia-Informed yoga, I believe I'm calling it. And we just do a lot of variety of movement, extension, compression, movement of the joints through their full potential range of motion. We do some balance. We're constantly working on posture. That's constantly woven into my classes. And then on Friday at noon, online only, I do more of a fitness style class. So we're using bands, and we do a lot of variety out of the linear planes of strengthening that matches functional movement. And we do some in the linear planes, of course, but that is the minimal part of what we do. It's more outside and novel movements and integrating and layering different strengthening for the core and the balance and the hips and the shoulders and everything that your body really needs. And we're also really focusing on posture in that class as well. So if you are an OT or a practitioner out there who is teaching yoga, you could take this course, learn another little spin on what you're teaching and how you're teaching it, other ways to talk to your participants about what they're doing. But I think it's also really helpful to traditional healthcare practitioners who have people that practice yoga, and being able to speak to them and guide them through their rehabilitation and doing it with something that they really love and enjoy. So I think we'll leave it there. The course for the public and the course for practitioners, I think, are both up and published and available. So I hope you find it interesting and check it out. We'll put a link in the notes. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in to the Fascia-Informed Therapist. It's been a pleasure sharing insights and strategies to help you integrate fascia science into your practice. I'm Amy Mayer, and I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore further and take your therapeutic skills to the next level. Remember, we're committed to creating and providing top-notch, evidence-based, fascia-informed continuing education that empowers you as an occupational therapy practitioner. Stay connected with us for more enriching content, and don't forget to check out our online courses to deepen your expertise. Until next time, keep expanding your knowledge, refining your skills, and confidently applying the science of fascia to your practice. Here's to advancing together in health and wellness.